Today is April 11th, 2021. My name is Guadalupe Lin. I'm interviewing Leticia Quiroz for the University Library Special Collections and Archives at the UTRGV of Texas Rio Grande Valley, hereafter abbreviated as UTRGV. This project is in partnership with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. Please know, Ms. Quiroz, that this interview will be placed in the University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV and shared with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin. If there is anything you do not wish to answer or talk about, I will honor your wishes. Also, if there is something you want to talk about, please bring it up and we'll talk about it. The University Library Special Collections and Archives will archive your interview along with any other photographs and other documentation you are willing to share. UTRGV University Library will retain copyright or non-inclusive right to the interview and any other materials you donate to Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV. Because we are not conducting this interview in person, I need to record your consenting to make sure you agree with our interview procedures before we continue. So I will ask you a series of 6 questions. Please say, yes, I agree, or no, I do not agree after each question. Do you give University Library Special Collections and Archives at UTRGV consent to archive your interview and your materials at the UTRGV University Library?
Yes, I do consent.
Do you grant UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives right, title, and interest in copyright over the interview and any materials you provide?
Yes, I do agree.
Do you agree to allow UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives to post this interview on the internet where it may be viewed by people around the world?
Yes, I agree.
Do you grant the University Library Special Collections and Archives consent to share your Zoom interview with the Voces Oral History Center at the University of Texas at Austin for inclusion in the Voices of a Pandemic Oral History mini project, which will include posting the interview on the internet?
Yes, I agree.
As you recall, we previously filled out a pre-interview form. We use information from the pre-interview form to help in research. The entire form is kept in a secure Voces server at the University of Texas at Austin. Before Voces sends it to UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives, we would have stripped out any information for yourself or family members so that they will not be a part of your public file. Your public file will only be accessible at UTRGV University Library. The final 2 questions ask for your consent on what I just described. Do you wish for us to share the rest of your interview in your public file available to researchers at UTRGV University Library Special Collections and Archives?
Yes, I do agree.
On occasion, UTRGV Special Collections and Archives and Voces receive requests from journalists who wish to contact our interview subjects. We only deal with legitimate news outlets. Do you give consent for us to share your phone numbers or your email with journalists?
Yes, I do agree.
Thank you for your consent. Your experience and stories mean a lot to us at UTRGV Special Collections and Archives. I look forward to what you have to say in the interview questions I will now ask.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Quiroz, thank you for your time. Like I said earlier, your stories and experiences are valuable to us at UTRGB Special Collections and Archives and the Voces Project. Particularly, for us at UTRGB Special Collections, we are committed to preserving the stories of Mexican Americans and Latinos from South Texas and the Rio Grande Valley, and those who work closely with these populations during this COVID-19 pandemic. Because you are a secondary high school teacher who cares for the physical safety and mental well-being of her students in the community of San Benito, Texas, and because you are a mother, sister, and friend who is knowledgeable of the ways of COVID-19 has affected others in her inner circle, I know you have many meaningful stories and experiences to share on how COVID-19 has impacted these roles you carry out in your life. So, before I ask you to share stories about your life in this pandemic, tell us, who is Leticia Quiroz? Where did you grow up? Go to school? What did you like to do for fun and relaxation?
Um, well, my name is Leticia Quiroz. I was born and raised in Raymondville, Texas. And I graduated from Raymondville High School. Then I moved to Corpus Christi and I graduated from A&M at Corpus Christi and majored in secondary education. And I've been a Spanish teacher for 17 years. What I like to do for fun or relaxation? Well, I love the beach. So, but for right now, I have not been going to the beach. I just resigned myself to listen to YouTube videos with the sound of music. And that's what I do for relaxation.
Okay, thank you. So, the first question I want to ask you is, when did you first hear about COVID-19? How did you learn about it? Did you learn about it through radio, TV, your children, social media, etc.?
Well, all of them, TV, social media, my coworkers, my children, my students.
What was your first reaction to the information about COVID-19?
My first reaction was, well, I hope well, as bad as it was coming out on the news, well, I just knew, well, I just felt it was going to be bad. um, but I was very hopeful and I prayed that we would not, well, the United States would not suffer as it was being predicted that we were. Unfortunately, it didn't come out that way.
At what point did you realize this pandemic was a serious life-altering event? Or do you not think it's serious? Why?
Oh no, I thought it was a life threatening event, especially that it caused so many deaths so very soon here in the Valley. As everyone already knows, COVID-19 hit the Valley very, very hard. And I suppose it just set when I went to the HEB, Walmart, and there was nothing on the shelves. No food, milk, just the basic essentials, toilet paper, which that went away, and the lines that you had to wait for, and having to go to other cities or even little stores because there was not, or well, there wasn't any provisions like eggs, milk. So I was, yes, I was very nervous and quite scared when it started to happen and we had to stay home.
Can you share with me what you understand about COVID-19 as an infectious disease and any of its variants? Likewise, can you share with me what you don't understand about this new coronavirus?
Well, to me, it's just plain and simple. If you do not follow the guidelines that CDC has, um, you're you don't follow the social distancing, don't put on the mask, um, go out to places where it's crowded, not washing your hands, and then coming home where you're going to get infect or contaminate the rest of your family members. And it just depends on the individual, but you can cause your own death or cause death to one of your family members. So basically, COVID-19 is a killer.
Can you tell me what you know about the various vaccines available to the public? How do you feel about these vaccines?
Well, I myself, which recently I just received the second dose of Moderna because our school district received the vaccinations from the county, and teachers, staff, everyone that works at the school district was given the vaccines. Of course, by this time it's going to be the third time around, because not everybody they didn't have enough vaccines for everyone in the school district, or other reasons why some of them did not get the vaccine. But the next month will be the third time that our school district will be offering vaccines, which is still the Moderna. From what I know, the ones that are almost the same are Moderna and Pfizer, with, I believe, Pfizer being just a little bit, 96% effective, and then Moderna 94. As far as side effects are concerned, both of them are quite similar as well. You can have headaches, pain in the local area and the arm where they give you the injection. Let's see, headaches, feeling achy all over, weak, and what else? Oh, and then the first time that you take it, well, for most of us that were on, or we took the Moderna, we had no side effects, nothing at all, except for the lingering, I would say maybe sore that you had on your arm where the injection was inserted.
Does your family members hold the same beliefs as you do about COVID-19, or are there some who take it more seriously or lightly?
No, all my family members feel the same way as I do. They take COVID-19 very seriously. They follow CDC guidelines. I myself will live here with my children in the Rio Grande Valley, and the rest of my family live in Corpus Christi, Texas.
For these next set of questions, I'd like to talk about how you've seen COVID-19 affect family members, friends, and equally important because you live in the Rio Grande Valley that has the second highest rate of COVID-19 hospitalization in the state of Texas, while also having loved ones who live outside from the valley. After realizing how serious COVID-19 was, what precautions did you and your family take?
Well, I reiterate that we did follow CDC guidelines since I work and I have to go to school. We practice a social distancing. I really don't see any of my peers. We stay in our rooms. We have our sessions online with our students. Wash your hands, and just we need to talk to any of the staff, principals, any other teachers. We strictly keep it at emails or calls within departments. We do not do anything unnecessary and meet face to face. If everything is everything is just online or calls.
As you can recall, Cameron County had implemented shelter in place and curfew orders back in March 2020. Can you tell me what that experience was like for you and your family?
Well, I was very nervous. I stopped watching the news. I just would check on the Google News on my cell phone because yes, it made me very nervous, and I did not tell my daughter or my children that I did. I felt nervous. I felt like I had nervous attacks because I'm the only one going out. My children, my daughter did not go out. I made sure that they did not. So I was the one making all the errands, going to the store, buying provisions for us, whatever it is that we needed. And so seeing where I lived was very, not enough cars, it's just different streets, very lonely, things like that. I just stopped watching the news. Whatever I had from text messages from our school district, emails, or from my colleagues, it's about as much as I knew. The TV I would avoid because it just made me very nervous to hear about all these deaths and the trailers that they were bringing in, the freezers where they would pile dead bodies one over the other. So I didn't really want to hear that on the news. It would just get me more nervous. And even now I feel nervous when I'm talking about it because it's just horrible. As I can say, that's how I felt.
Yes, I agree. Very understandable. As you mentioned briefly a little bit before, you talked about how there were food shortages and some essential items that were hard to get. What did you and your family do to handle those kind of different situations?
Well, since I saw the Walmart and the HEB that had huge lines, I started to drive around and I noticed that like the dollar store didn't have a lot of people. So I'd go to the dollar store. I would even go to Brownsville. I noticed that the pharmacies like CVS and Walgreens, for example, did not have a lot of people. So, and there was actually no lines. So I was able to get toilet paper, milk, the other essential items that basically people were waiting in lines and lines and hours for the HEB and Walmart. Thank the Lord God, every time that we were running low on provisions, I would just go to the pharmacies, the dollar store, go to Brownsville if need to, and that's how I was able to provide for my family, because I just went to the other places that the other people were not, or I guess did not know that they had milk or toilet paper and things, other necessities. So that's how I handled that. So even then, when I went out and I couldn't find things, I felt nervous, but I that's what I did. So I was able to provide for my family.
How has the pandemic affected your children's learning or their life at home?
Well, for my little one, I have two little boys. One is in fifth grade and one is in the first grade. The first grader has Down syndrome. He misses school. He he's very funny. He's online, and the teacher says, "Hey, Amado, hey, Amado," and he just waves at them and makes this little face like, "Yeah, right. I'm gonna pay attention to you." So apparently, my little boy doesn't seem, or just doesn't think he's at school because he's at home. And so when he has PE, things like that, he doesn't follow that they're jumping up and down or moving their hands and legs. He just sits there and uses something else or preoccupied with something else, but he doesn't join in. My fifth grader, he joins in, but it's like, for example, me and my students, I have to call the parents because they're not joining the Zoom meetings, they're not doing their work. And it so happens that they do the same thing to me. I'm at work and my son Angel is not online. And so I have to also call home because I have my daughter and she's taking care of Amadito with his online assignments. And Angel is in another room and I have to call her or text her and let her know that teachers just called me. It depends. He has 4 teachers, so it depends which one is calling me, and that he's not online. So I have to deal with him not joining because he's asleep. So, but I fixed that already. They do call me, and I just have to call back home. And my son, the fifth grader, he just has to get back online, and then the teacher calls me back or sends me a text message and lets me know that he's back online.
When it was said you could send your children back to school, what did you do, or how did it make you feel? Especially with how it seems that your little boys are kind of having difficulty adjusting to online learning.
Well, because it's not mandatory and they're not vaccinated, I'm not sending them. And as of what I know right now, they don't have the vaccine for elementary school age children. And for my youngest son who has Down syndrome, of course, they don't have anything for his age. And from what I have read, adults and children who have Down syndrome, they are 10 times more likely to be hospitalized and 10 times more likely to die of COVID-19. So for right now, no. If our school district says that they're opening, which they've opened face-to-face, but if they still say it's not mandatory, it's if a parent chooses, I will not send my children.
You have family outside of the Rio Grande Valley, specifically in Corpus Christi? Did they have to follow the same guidelines and procedures that were made here?
Yes, they did. And stores, also school district as well. It was not mandatory for the children or my nieces and nephews to attend school. It was up to the parents. However, I do have a sister that works outside, like with office supplies, and here we're all, from what I see, most everyone wears a mask and has no problem wearing the mask, even since the beginning. In Corpus Christi, my sister would tell me that the people in Corpus, some would go into the stores and would argue with management that they didn't have to, because they would come in without any mask. And they thought that, she said that a lot of people thought that the COVID-19 was a hoax, that it wasn't true. They would talk about their constitutional rights, and they didn't have to. And so she said she saw a lot of people that didn't want to wear their mask and didn't take COVID-19 seriously. But my family did. They did follow CDC guidelines wherever they went. They didn't go out unless they had to. So as far as my family is concerned, they always took COVID-19 seriously. And unfortunately, where they live, a lot of people did not believe that COVID-19 was as serious as it was being reported in the news or social media.
Therefore, is it safe to say that the pandemic has definitely affected how your family does traditions and holiday celebrations? For example, do they still celebrate birthdays and Christmas, like Christmas is the same, or do they do things differently? Especially how you said that they take COVID-19 very seriously. So when it comes to gatherings, what do they do differently than what they had done before the pandemic?
Well, they do not have the birthdays as usual. They usually stay at home. My sister doesn't have any birthdays for her children. They just do it at home. For Thanksgiving, they did, however, have Thanksgiving, but not everyone together. My brothers who lived there, of course, they ate, and then afterwards they left. I don't know where they left to, but I was told that then my other sisters would go with her husband, and then they would leave, and then my other sister would pop in. So it wasn't, they did celebrate it, but they basically took turns in celebrating Thanksgiving, going to my parents' house. And I stayed home with my family, except for another one of my sisters. She went over to my house, and we had Thanksgiving. So, but it was just only 2 people, and none of it. Thank God, up to right now, none of my family members, well, at least in that area, yes, that they have not had COVID-19. But my other sister, the older sister, and her daughter, they did get COVID-19, but they have many other medical ailments, but they also follow CDC rules, so they have no idea how they got COVID, but they say that they did because they lost the sense of taste, and really they didn't have to be hospitalized because of the certain ailments that they have. They are always on a certain type of antibiotics. My niece suffers severe migraines, so she is on certain types of medications antibiotics that they had to give him from time to time. And so they think because of their chronic illness, they didn't need to be hospitalized because they always have antibiotics in their system. And my older sister as well, she has Crohn's disease, and she also has takes a series of medications and antibiotics. So she believes that she need to be hospitalized because she also has uses antibiotics or has antibiotics in her system. And then recently, my niece's husband, he contracted COVID. He did, but he works. Yeah, he's a fisherman in Corpus Christi. So they figure, well, he got it by working over there, or somebody had it because he said that he followed CDC guidelines. He wasn't near people. They kept the social distancing. So he did contract it, but he was fine. They gave him medications, and he followed the. Once he was sick, he didn't go. He actually went with his mother, who has a bigger house, and he just stayed there at his mother's house instead of coming home with my niece because of her other complications that she has. So he didn't want to cause any more distress for her. So he stayed away until he felt better.
Given the case with your sister, your niece, and her husband, do you know that, like, after they recovered, that they have taken the vaccine? Have you taken the vaccine? And if not, what has stopped them from doing so?
Well, I believe my niece's husband is scheduled to take it. I believe it was a little bit recent that he contracted COVID, and so I believe the doctor said to wait a little bit, but he is scheduled to take the vaccine. I don't know which one. My niece, because she has all those complications, the doctor has already told her not to take any of the 3 vaccines because it may kill her because of the other chronic illnesses that she has. And so he has suggested to her not to take any type of COVID vaccines. My older sister, to tell you the truth, I don't recall if she's going to take it or not, or I believe she was going to see the doctor to see if she was able to take one of the vaccines. Because I don't remember. I don't think so. I think she was waiting, and I have not spoken to my older sister, so I don't know. I believe she's waiting for that answer from her doctor. And of course, I myself, I've already taken the second dose. First dose, I didn't feel anything except for my arm feeling a little bit numb in the beginning. And I just put my arm over my head for a while because I was driving. I did stay the 15 minutes as they suggested to see if I had any secondary reactions, but I did not. But then as soon as I drove off, I felt my arm, my left arm numb, which was the arm that they put the injection on. And I just put my arm over my head while I was driving. And once I got home, the sensation went away. The next day, I still felt my arm a little bit, or the area a little bit sore. And that was about it. That was the first dose. The second dose, yes, I did feel it. I did feel, again, the sensation after 15 minutes, my left arm, plus this time was my right arm, and both of my arms felt numbness. But again, I did the same thing. I put my when I got home, I put my arms over my head, and that was it. The second day, both my arms were hurting, as if they had put injections in my arms. My legs were hurting. I had a slight fever, and yes, I did feel a little bit weak, and my body just ached all over. It even hurt when they touched my skin, so I did feel pain all over, and it was an all-day thing. I did take I took Tylenols first, and then after a couple of hours, then I would take ibuprofen. So I would switch medications. By the next day, the pain in my body, my arms, it went away. And that was it. It was just one day that I felt all these symptoms. And up to, as of today, I still feel all right.
Earlier, you mentioned that you were not only a mother, but also a teacher as well. Can you describe how long you've been a teacher and what your typical day at work looked like before the pandemic?
I've been teaching for 17 years, secondary level. Typical day was just greeting my kids. I didn't have really any computers to work with them. They just had their phones. So I would use, when it was, I would say I would use it on Thursdays and Fridays. They would use their phone to do online assignments. Otherwise, other days were going over our textbook, doing activities, verbal activities. And I would give them a dialogue to follow. And for example, like the first days of school, things like that. I would give them an example dialogue and then just highlight the areas that they could replace with their own names, the subjects that they had, and just a typical dialogue between them. So that's what they did. They interacted with each other. I interacted with them. I knew which is a big difference now. I knew my kids. After 3 weeks, I knew who needed some help, who didn't, who could do everything on their own, who needed me more than others, and things like that. Now with the pandemic, well, I really don't know my kids, and that's a big negative. I don't know them. I mean, I try to talk to them, but it's very hard. They are very silent. They sometimes don't talk to me when we have live sessions. Things as dialogues, they won't do it because they can barely chat sometimes. So I also record the sessions, and I use this program called Quizzes. So I share the screen, and it's in the mode. And so I tell them to participate, or, they don't want to say anything, they can chat. And some will. And I usually have about 30 something kids for each class. And from the 32 or 34 kids that I have for each class, only the most I have is 10. And it goes down 6, 8, 4. That was the first semester. This semester, it's 8 the most. And sometimes it's just 1 or 2. And I have to call parents and, tell them why aren't they logging on, or I call my kids, or I say, why aren't you logging on? And so it's very, very different. The no interaction really is almost, it's not there for me. It's not there. When before, of course, I saw them every day. I get to know them. Activities and in school where I used a lot of the dialogue, even though they didn't like it, but they did it. And more contact with each other, more contact, of course, with me, with them on a daily basis. So you get to know them. Um, it, and even the school itself, the building without the students, it just feels like an empty shell. My classroom feels like an empty shell. And online, well, it's just so different. I mean, they have those little icons there. Sometimes it's anime or whatever they they have there for their icon, but of course, it is not the same. And sometimes I'm doing the lesson and I'm saying, okay, guys, what's the answer? Nothing. And it's so awkward. And I do tell them, I go, oh, okay, guys, somebody chat something, somebody say something. And I feel awkward because no one is saying anything. And at our school district, well, at least with the secondary students, they have to keep the mics off while I'm talking, and they also have to keep their camera off because the school district, when we first started with the pandemic, we learned that, or with secondary students, they were not completely dressed, or things that you could see in the background, things, family moving around, things like that. And so the school district did not want to deal with that, so they have to have their cameras off. So it makes it a little bit even more difficult to get to know them because I don't see their faces. And so when I'm doing the lesson, no one says anything. And I'm like, okay, guys, and I'll say it again, and no one say anything. And really, I'll just go out and I say, okay, it's awkward, guys, awkward. And so I say, it's Miss Quiroz con los grillitos de San Benito, and I would tell them, you guys know who Buddy Holly was? There in the 1950s, he's the one that sang La Bamba. He had Buddy Holly and the Crickets, and so and then Miss Quiroz and the Crickets, because nobody's talking. And even then, I don't get a ha-ha, nothing at all. So what I do is, I just keep going with the lesson, and then I just explain why such and such is the answer. And I say it in English and I say it in Spanish, so it's just so very different.
I can only imagine how difficult it must be for you, because from what you've been telling me, it's very new to you, the whole online learning experience, for you and especially your students. Um, with that said, can you share with me how your school/school district helped you prepare for transitioning to becoming a remote teacher? How many in-services or workshops did you attend, and what kinds of training did you get?
Well, we did start with, of course, the meetings, and that was something that we needed to learn too, how to Zoom. And then once we learned how to Zoom, then they told us we had to use Google Meets, and then it was something, it's just been a learning process. So I could say we've had formal meetings and we've had impromptu meetings and we've had department meetings. We just have meetings. It's like constant meetings, learning something new, or they just keep adding, now you need to learn this. Okay, guys, now you learn this. Now we need to add this. So it's been a constant learning. I can't say it's just several. You can say trainings, or it's just every day you have to learn, or every week you have to learn something new. And we just finished learning the ins and outs of Google Classroom, and now we are having to learn Blackboard. because our school district is switching over to Blackboard. So it's just constant learning of new programs.
So, from what you are saying, your school district is continually is continually teaching y'all different ways how to do remote learning for you and your students.
Yes, and introducing other new programs that are out there in the educational internet world that we can be using. So they're always trying to present to us what other programs we can use or we can implement with our students. And I personally, if I don't know something, I'll look at. We'll have our training. I'll go to YouTube, and I'll learn something, and then I'll just tell the kids, okay, I learned something, guys, and let's see if it goes well. And so when it's something like that, the students usually help me out a lot, and I tell them, well, I can't see what's going on with you, and sometimes some of the programs you can't see the student view, and you make this lesson, and you just I'd like to see the student view. A lot of the programs do not have student view. They're neat. You can say how to present your content, your objectives, but you can't see student view. So I have very good kids that will let me know what's going on their side, and I tell them, well, let's just have fun. If it didn't work out well, then we'll just figure out what went wrong, and then I'll just present another one, and we'll do something else. And so it goes on like that, and that's how I learn. That's how they learn, because sometimes some of the kids will say, yes, I did this with my science teacher or something, or sometimes they say, no, we haven't done this. So it's a learning process all the time.
From all those programs you've had to learn in order to, I guess, be more engaged and involved with your students and their learning. Can you tell me what favorite lesson you have done as a remote teacher that you and your students have enjoyed?
Uh, I think they've enjoyed. We had the online book. They had puzzles for them, memory games. I can't really say which one was the best one, but I know the one that I can get a grade from, because that also was a problem. We would use all these other little programs, and sometimes the grading would work and sometimes it wouldn't. So the one, like I said, the one I use all the time is quizzes. Um, San Benito residents, a lot of them can't receive internet. We have to send the school district sends buses with internet in it, and they position them in different areas of the city.
Um, you were talking about how just now how the schools have been trying to help out students by giving them computers and things like that that are essential to remote learning. Um, with this in mind, can you say that COVID-19 has revealed to you and in your school district some of the shortcomings um, within the community that did not seem as problematic before?
Well, the students have a hard time with their internet. Um, I've called home. Parents tell me that, of course, a lot of them don't know how to use the internet. Then I talk to my students and I tell them, well, why aren't you signing on? Why aren't you doing your work? And a lot of them tell me that they just, because they can't really see what the teacher is doing, they find it very hard to understand or to keep up. A lot of my students, since I teach Spanish, a lot of my students are LIP, which are limited English proficient. So they find it a little bit more difficult to keep up with their teachers. They live the area here where I work. It's very big, and the school district has provided the students with computers. They have positioned buses with internet, so that way the students can receive Wi-Fi from the school. They have been given the I forgot what they call them, the sticks, the, oh, what do you call them? The hotspots. They also have issued hotspots for certain students because they still live um, outside of the city limits of the town, or what I call in the boonies. They live so far away that internet, they can't get the internet. So they still have internet issues despite the school district trying to help as much as they can. Some, I know parents will drive into the parking lot of the nearest school, and that's where the students do their work. They're doing their work in the cars, or they'll do their work. Some of them, a lot of students, since they're secondary, a lot of students have acquired jobs because some of the parents got sick. Some of the parents lost their jobs, and so they're having to work and try to cope with keeping up with their schoolwork, and they're very tired and they're very stressed, and families are very stressed. Um, Students are stressed so very much, and a lot of them do miss being at school. They miss having a teacher there um, to provide feedback one-on-one, and they just find it very difficult to um, just keep up with their studies online. And sometimes they just because the internet is not working, and because they're having these other issues at home, they have other siblings, and uh, the parents are just having a very hard time keeping up with all the students that need to be online, or there's too many students online, and and of course, if there's too many, there's only one computer per student. And if, let's just say they have um, 3 siblings or something like that, it's only like 1 or 2, I believe, 1 or 2 computers per. So it's not every child um, has a computer for themselves. They have to share the computer. So at times that's why they're behind in their schoolwork, because they have to share computers or the internet's not working. So there's a lot of issues with internet connectivity, as well as the students getting frustrated because they can't, they find it just very hard to understand the lessons that are being presented online.
Given the difficulties you were talking about with you and your students having problems with your internet connection, or your students not having, with the school policy of a computer, like one computer to um, each child. And I'm guessing from what you were talking, it was kind of like a first come first served sort of kind of situation. Um, with that said, when it was announced that schools were to be open again for face-to-face instruction, how did you feel about it? Were you glad, or were you nervous? Can you tell me briefly about that?
Um, I was, we were all basically leery. Well, I was Okay. Again, when they offered it for face-to-face, the school district did provide us with a shield, and they provided shields for the students. We spaced out the desks for 6 feet. So basically, for example, mine, you could have a safely, I would say 6 safely, with their shields. But I was very leery at how that was going to pan out. But I didn't have actually very many students coming in with me. Other teachers did. It just depended on, mostly from what we learned, parents that were working. So those were the students that were coming in, that they had their parents working, or the students were not working at all. And so the parent wanted the student to come in. However, we did, the school district did close for 4 days, a couple of months ago, somewhere, I believe in, I want to say November, December, the end of November, December. There were some students from the elementary campus that had COVID, and some of those parents were staff members from various school districts, some from our campus, the high school, some of the teachers as well, because they did send, they had some of their children in the elementary schools, and they had COVID. And of course, they had to go home and quarantine themselves. So, and since it wasn't a lot of cases, but they were coming in. I just don't remember how many. I mean, it wasn't over 10, but or maybe it was. I don't want to lie, but it was to the point that since the elementary students were getting contaminated, and then those students, or what I learned, some of our teachers had COVID because they sent their children to the elementary schools where they were getting contaminated. And then they were sent home. They closed the school, the whole school district closed down the schools, so that way they could decontaminate the buildings. So that's what our school district did. Since then, of course, we still have face-to-face. I did wind up having a student that comes in because his mother just wanted him to come to school, because she said that he's not doing anything at home, so he must well come to school. But he's up to par with his studies. I just believe she just didn't want him at home. But only one. But sometimes he just doesn't show up. Same thing with the other students. They come in, but once our policy is that they show up, they should continue to come to school. But mine in particular doesn't. He shows up and then he doesn't show up, and that's like months. It takes he may not come to school the whole month, and then next month he'll come in maybe 3 times out of that month. So I don't hardly have my student in with me all the time, but since it's only one student, he's usually in the corner with a shield, and of course I have my shield, and we wear our masks, and they only stay in one. They're not exchanging rooms, so the students stay in the classroom all day with the teacher that they are assigned. So they are still having their sessions online. So they're provided with earphones, so that way they can log on to their classes, and I continue on with my students each period as well.
So to be clear, you only have one student in the classroom while all the others are virtually online.
Well, it just depends. Some teachers have no student at all, and then some teachers have two. Some teachers have one. It just depends. I mean, I don't know because I stay in my classroom. I'm not going around uh, trying to find out what student or what teacher has so and so. But we do know they do take attendance for the students that are face to face. So they send us an email saying who's on campus. So that way, if we have those or any of those are our students, we can call the other teacher and say, hey, they haven't been doing our work. Can you please let them know that they need to do their work? Because sometimes, even though they're on campus, sometimes they don't do some of the work for their other courses. So, um, like I said, I don't know because since we follow the guidelines, I, I if necessary, absolutely necessary, I really speak to my colleagues like every 2 weeks or something, or sometimes it's a whole month. I don't see them at all. Of course, we have Zoom meetings, and that's how we meet, or department meetings, um, school-wide campus meetings, but that's about it. I mean, we don't have contact with people. I don't see my peers. I really don't see them because um, our school district has us abide to the social distancing, which is for our well-being.
With all that said, would you say that you were satisfied with your school's response to COVID-19?
Yes, I could say yes because all of us do. We take COVID very seriously. Unfortunately, like I said, I do have those three family members, but they were not hospitalized. But there are other teachers, janitors, other staff members from our high school, from other campuses that some needed hospitalization, some did not. Um, we did have some deaths, but they were not COVID related. But to say that we had people, staff, or teachers die of COVID, no, they did not, but they did get sick. And yes, I feel safe um, with my school, or because that's what we do. We follow the CDC guidelines, social distancing, washing our hands, wearing our mask at all times, avoiding any face-to-face with other students. I mean, well, with other peers, and we don't have to when we make a call, email, or have a Zoom meeting. And of course, when I do have my student, well, he's really at the corner, and he has that shield, and so he stays there, and I do not interact with him unless I need to talk to him and say something. Other than that, no. So I feel pretty much safe because everyone follows the guidelines.
Good, I'm very glad to hear that. Now, to close, I will ask you some final questions. Are you satisfied with the local response to COVID-19 in Cameron County?
Yes, I am. The county judges here in Cameron County, Hidalgo, all of them were agreed. Uh, well, especially when COVID first started, to stay at home. Um, we're on lockdown, but it was unnecessary because there's just so many people that were dying. Um, so many hospitals overwhelmed, doctors, and the hospitals, regular office, well, doctors that had their offices, they were all overwhelmed with people with COVID. And of course the hospitals, they couldn't keep up with all the bodies. And so they had to ask for refrigerated trailers. And even up to now, I forgot to say that the father, the best friend of my daughter, he died of COVID, and it was very, very fast. It was in December. He was diagnosed with COVID, I think before Christmas, and then on New Year's he was dead. And he was working at a bakery here in town, and apparently they were all working with COVID, and they were continuing to work at COVID at the bakery. So he contracted it. The family sent him to the hospital. He was very severe, had complications, so they hospitalized him. And then I called his wife, and so of course she told me that they had COVID, and she lived. The one that was still there was the older son, and he lived there, and so he had it as well. And she told me that they asked for help. So okay, so we have COVID now. Are you going to help me? They medicate us or something. They said no. They refused them. That well, yes, they had it, but they weren't severe enough to be hospitalized like her husband. So she just asked, well, where can we get help? And they said, we don't know. You just that you're on your own on that. So thank God her son found something online, and they went all the way to, I think, Edinburgh, where they got treated. And then, of course, her husband died, and it took him about a month, a bit more than a month, to retrieve the body. And so it's still taking up to all this time, a whole month, to, if you have a loved one that dies of COVID, you're not going to get their body till after a month. Even now that the numbers are lower here in the Rio Grande Valley, because we still, due to the judge, the Cameron County judge, that still says that we need to follow CDC guidelines. We're still not out of the clear here in the Rio Grande Valley, and we just need to keep our masks, continue social distancing. And it's still taking a whole month to get your loved one's body. So I find that very, very hard and very difficult. And of course, I suffered a lot. It's just very hard. And in particular, at times, my students would ask me if, I did the same, if I followed CDC guys. And I go, yes, I do. I said, and they had asked me for my opinion, and I would always say, okay, my opinion is not the same as school district. And but like I said, the school district does a good job at it.
Could you then say that you are not satisfied with the state response to COVID-19 led by Texas and Governor Abbott? Or
Oh yes, I'm not satisfied at all with Governor Abbott's change of policy about masks. We here in the Valley, the majority of us do not agree with the governor. I know for a fact that the judge, Cameron County judge here, asked and wrote to the governor saying that, they weren't at all in agreement with opening Texas for everyone, and the masks were not mandatory, especially here in the Valley. So we're just getting the numbers, at least, trying to control those numbers. And so not here in this section, not here in the Valley. we're not happy with Governor Abbott's change of policy there. We're all still wearing our masks. We're all still complying with social distancing. COVID is as I said, it's a killer. It's not a joke. It's not our imagination. People are dying here in the Rio Grande Valley. They have died. We have people that it takes them a month to get their loved one's body. Loved ones have died by themselves. And I just hope that with vaccinations available, at least for the adults, that we all get vaccinated. And from what I know, as well as a lot of people, they have vaccination clinics in Willacy County, Cameron County, in different areas, and they run out of the vaccine. So the people here in the Valley are taking COVID seriously. They are getting vaccinated because we want to eradicate this disease. We want to go to return back to our lives. My students want to come back to school. They want their life to be normal. They do not want to continue to live as they have. I know also some of my students are very depressed. Some of them are dealing with depression, whereas before they did not. And their parents have told me, and when I call, why isn't so-and-so doing their work? They were doing their work and now they're not. And there are some that they said they've stopped because family members have died of COVID. The students are depressed. So it's just very hard.
Can you say briefly that you're satisfied to the current national response to COVID-19 led by President Biden and his administration?
Again, I'm just going to stick to the Valley. I haven't, like I said, I should be more aware from the news and things like that, but it really does. I'm a nurse. It really does affect me when I watch the news and it's the same thing over and over again. Or yes, this is something better, but I'm just sticking to where the Valley here is responding to most people getting vaccinated. We're trying to eradicate this disease. People are trying to take care of their families, themselves, when at work, at home. I honestly can't say that I should, but like I said, I haven't kept up. I'm trying to keep up. Basically, what keeps me busy is trying to keep up with my students. Some of them are not logging on, and even our principals, they all go and we report that we just had no contact with some students, and they go and they make those home visits. They're always out there making those home visits to check on the students. So basically I only have time to focus on what's going on here. So if, getting those vaccines to us here in the Valley is part of what Biden is doing, and then I would say yes. But here in the Valley, they're trying to do as much as they can to vaccinate the people here.
Throughout the interview, you have been very, very supportive of the CDC guidelines the precautions that the schools, the county, and and Biden, like with the vaccines, the push with the vaccines. You've been very supportive of all that. With that said, if you had the power to respond to COVID-19 with policies, laws, or workplace decisions, would you add anything to it, um, or do you think that there there's enough being done, or possibly you would want to do things differently?
Well, as far as Texas is concerned, I would have wanted the governor to continue with the policy as before, not to open um, the restaurants to all the public. We still should take precautions. As I said before, I have a lot of students and colleagues of mine that have reported that our students are not doing as well because they've had family members die of COVID. We have students that are orphans now. They lost both of their parents. And so it's been very, very hard for our students, our families. They've lost their jobs. Students have had to take jobs in order to support their family. And I just believe that, people's lives are important. And because most of our families here are below income levels, it's very hard for them to make ends meet and then have to focus on continuing their education. Me personally, I'm taking all the precautions I can because I am a single mother. I do have to go out there and work. And, if I did not have my older daughter to help me, I would be one of those parents that had to take their children to school in elementary. And I just can't imagine, especially with my little one that has Down syndrome. I couldn't imagine if he would get COVID-19. Who knows? I just don't want to think about the moment that, if I didn't have my older daughter and my little boy got COVID and he was hospitalized and he died. And that's just unbearable for me to just thinking about it. I would have to bury a child. And, some of these families here, that's what they're experiencing. Our students, they're burying both of their parents. Some of their family members, they don't have their mom, they don't have their dad. Having to live with other relatives or no relatives. I think I would just continue to not to have opened, I believe, especially here, the restaurants or bars and everything else open to the public because not everyone is vaccinated. And I think the vaccinations are key to eradicating this disease. And I know that right now we still don't have the studies or the volunteers for the vaccines for the little ones, but if the adults if we could get most of the adults in Texas to be vaccinated, maybe by that time they would find a vaccine for our younger children, because I just don't, I can't fathom to have trailers full, which we already did, trailers full of dead bodies, and then to have, send the kids to school, and then we have trailers full of the children's bodies. I mean, it'd be just horrible. And I don't know what else to say. I just can't fathom that we had, and we're still having those problems with funeral homes that they just can't process all the people that have died of COVID. Families still waiting for their loved ones' bodies, even after a month, even after all this time that we have been dealing with COVID, living with COVID. And then to just open the school districts and just say, no, you're going to send your kids and they're not vaccinated. I mean, I just wouldn't want to bury my children. I would not. I would just keep them home. And I don't think anybody here would even say or would even send their children, voluntarily.
I agree. Absolutely agree. It's unimaginable. It's very hard to process and imagine all the loss and difficulties we've had during this pandemic. Nobody could have saw this coming. But hopefully, as you said, with the vaccines, things will get better soon. Therefore, is there any other stories or experiences you would like to share with me that I have not asked about?
No, I think so. I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you for your time and participation in the UTRGV Voces Oral History Project. I hope you and your loved ones take care and stay safe. Dios la bendiga.
Gracias, igualmente.